All right, guys, let's have some fun. Let's learn something kind of new, kind of different. Okay. And this, as you can see, is an alternative practice for those of you struggling with Khan Academy, which hopefully you shouldn't. But this is another way to get some credit for me. Alternative practice. More importantly, you're learning something that's going to help you for next year. Guys, please get in the mindset. Let's not worry as much about this year, because this year is basically done in a lot of ways. Let's prepare for next year. There even may be regular summer school, by the way. So keep that in mind, and hopefully it happens so that some of you guys can maybe do some classes over summer, obviously. So, anyways, let's get started here. So, our goal is basically to graph this function. The function says y equals sine of theta. Theta is just the angle, and we're going to use degrees to keep it simple here, plus 2. Sine of theta plus 2. So how we're going to do this, guys, is we're going to do it basically the way I taught you to do any graph. We're going to make a table. Now, the only thing different really is x is really theta. It's degrees, right? And remember, our y here is sine theta. And then, of course, yeah, we'll actually do it in 2 steps here. So we're going to do sine theta, okay? And then our y, which we're going to graph, is sine theta plus 2. Okay? So, again, we're just going to set up a table, go in nice, easy steps. Now, here's the big thing. It's actually not that hard, guys, once you know and memorize certain things. For example, you ought to know that sine of 0 is 0. You ought to know sine of 90 is 1. Sine of 180 is 0. Sine of 270 is negative 1. And sine of 360 is 0. Now, how do I know that? Is one way to prove it, besides doing it in your calculator. Notice, guys, I just did it all in my calculator. But remember the unit circle. If I'm at 0 degrees, remember sine is your y. So as you can see, 0 is 0. 90, the y is 1. 180, the y is 0 again. 270, remember, sine is your y, is negative 1. And of course, 360 means I'm back to here, which means it's 0 again. It's a nice cycle, guys. It's a circle. Circles keep going around and around, never changing, always going around, right? Continuously. All right? So, but again, like me, you ought to memorize. Hey, what's the sine of 90? That's 1. What's the sine of 270? That's negative 1. And so on. But anyways, guys, check this out. If you agree, we're going to use 0, 90, 180, 270, and 360. We already know the sine of 0 is 0. The sine of 90 is 1. The sine of 180 is 0. The sine of 270 is negative 1. And the sine of 360 is 0. Again, if you have to, use your calculator. Or use a unit circle. Okay? And now, we're going to get our y's. Because all we have to do now is we're just going to add 2 to each of these, right? So the sine of theta plus 2, 0 plus 2 is 2. 1 plus 2 is 3. 0 plus 2 is 2. Negative 1 plus 2 is 1. 0 plus 2 is 2. Let's see what we got. 0 is 2. 1 is 3. 0, or sorry, I messed up. Darn it. 0 is 2. 90. What a silly mistake I made there. 90 is 3. We have to think of degrees. 90 is 3. 180 is 2. 180 is 2. 270 is 1. 360 is 2. Guys, if we connect the dots with a curve like this, we got our sine function. Now understand, it keeps going on and on. Like for example, the next value would be up here. The next value will be back down here, and so on. It's a continuous wave. Okay, that's what sines always look like, a continuous wave. But we just graphed it, guys. Now, what else should we understand based on what we've been doing is, couldn't I split it in half like this? That purple line is called the midline. And from the midline, do you agree I go up that little bit there and I go down that a little bit there? The amount that it goes up or goes down, in maximum each way, max or min each way, is called the amplitude. So notice our amplitude is 1 because it went from, right here, it went from 2 to 3. From right here, it went from 2 down to 1. So the amplitude is 1. And then there's something new we're going to talk about more starting today, is the period. Guys, this is what a period means. Follow the green. Let's start at 0 degrees here. And we're going to follow the curve until it does a complete cycle. So do you agree? It goes up to its max there. It goes back down to 0. Then it goes to its minimum there. And then it goes finally back to 0 again. That right there, guys, in green is our period. And our period, notice, went from 0 to 360 degrees. So I know that's hard to read. Let me do it with black. So we would say our period is 360 degrees. Okay, guys, let's do one more, beginning and end with less interruptions. You ready? Here we go. This time we're going to make our table. Theta, which is really x. This time, let's do it in chunks again. We're going to do 2 times the sine of theta. And then we're going to finally do 2 sine theta plus 1. Okay? You could do it all in one swoop. That's actually our y, if you want. But I'm worried that you're going to make a silly mistake, like I may do myself, even if I'm not careful. Now remember, we're going to use the easy degrees that we know that come from the unit circle as well. We're going to count by 90s, basically. So we're going to start at 0. We're going to go to 90 degrees, then 180 degrees, then 270 degrees. I'm just counting by 90, back to 360. Okay? Now, remember the sine of 0 is 0 times 2 would be 0. When I plug 90 in there, the sine of 90, remember, is 1 times 2 is 2. 180 when I plug in. Well, the sine of 180 is 0 times the 2 is 0 again. Let's go ahead and do 270. We know the sine of 270 is negative 1 times the 2 is negative 2. And finally, 360, sine of 360 is 0. And when we times by the 2 is 0 again. Guys, I can't emphasize that you eventually should memorize these 90s, okay, for the sine. Now, to finish up, all we have to do is add 1 to it. Because remember, we have to do 2 times sine of theta and then add the 1. So, if I add 1 to that, I get 1. If I add 1 to that, I get 3. If I add 1 to that, I get 1. Add 1 to that, I get negative 1. Add 1 to 0, I get 1. So we're going to graph this with this. Here we go. 0 degrees is 1. Bam. 90 degrees is 3. Bam. 180 is 1. Boom. 270 is negative 1. Boom. Finally, 0. Oop, 360. Almost made the same mistake as before. 360 is 1 again. Guys, here is our graph. If I connect it with a nice curve, our wave, our sine wave. Okay. Now, guys, notice, could I not split it in half here? This again is our midline. Now check this out, guys. Do you agree our midline is at 1? Y equals 1 is that midline line. And guess what? That number we added at the end, guys, that tells you your midline. That tells you your shift up or down. It's the midline. It's the middle of your sine wave. Remember that. Guys, now what else can we learn? Guys, notice from the midline, I go up that certain amount, which happens to be 2. Over here at 270, I went down to negative 2, right? Technically negative 1, but I went down a value of 2, right? What is our amplitude? Our amplitude is going to be 2. Now notice, guys, the 2 is what we're timesing the function by. So that number, that coefficient of the sine is your amplitude every time. Try to remember that. We're going to do a video on that as well. Notice again, if we follow the curve, guys, in green, it starts at 0. It goes up to that 3, goes back down, 1, goes up to 3, goes back to 1, down to negative 1, back to 1 again. That's one full wave, right? One full complete cycle, as we say. And that's our period. Our period, again, as we say, the period is how long it takes to do one complete loop, basically, is 360 degrees again. Now, guys, you're going to want to watch this video more than once. Pause it, rewind it, take notes on it. Okay? There's going to be a part 2 coming very soon, or right after I'm done with this one. Okay? But hopefully you're starting to get how to do these sine functions. I'll see you around.